Afternoon, people. Back again with my Givi topbox V47 monokey, and I wanted to install some lights in these little slots here. So when I'm riding in the dark, people can will have a better chance of seeing me. And I've managed to fit it in. Let me autofocus. There you go. I've managed to fit them in. And this is what it looks like. There you go. It's not too bad, is it? Now, bit of a how-to, I suppose, with this video, and what I'm proposing to do. The kit itself, an LED strip, which is that kind of thing, yeah. You can buy off eBay with all of these kind of wires and all the rest of it for about £45, which is more than what I wanted to spend, to be honest with you. So what I did was ended up going onto eBay and buying a set of strips of LEDs, okay, for about £8. I think they were about £4 each. Got two. One for this side, one for this side, and it cost me a total of £8. I had some wires and connectors, all that kind of stuff, knocking about at home. So I thought I'd rather than spend £45, I'll just spend £8 and get these lights put in. They serve the same purpose. Even the ones that you get from for the actual box itself, they are only single element. So what that means is that, you know how the lights came up red, they're always like that. They don't dim, they don't go light, they don't go dark for the brake. So when you wire these up to the lighting circuit off your ignition, then these are always going to be on, okay, and they're always going to be at that brightness. So I thought to myself, well, you know, it's not much different. Why do I want to pay an extra £30 to go for that? So I ended up buying these. Now, it's a bit of a job, bit of a learning experience on how to take all of this off. So first thing that you need to do is take the backrest off if you have one, and then the rest of it is all underneath. So I'll tell you about the actual box itself, and then what I'm proposing to do. So you've got one on this particular model. You've got 1, 2, 3, okay, screws there, and then you've got 1, 2, 3 there, 4 there, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, once you take those 7 screws out, yeah, this whole thing will just come off. And when that comes off, this is just resting underneath it. This isn't attached to anything. Okay, so there's a screw here which pins that down, and there's other screws around here which pins this down, but this in itself isn't fixed on by any screws. So once you release the screws for these, this whole thing will come off, and this will come off. You know, you need to take that off first, because there's a lip on the back of here which holds this plastic piece down. Once you've taken that off, this whole thing will be released. Now you need to take that off because there's a little lip, as you can see, on this particular one, that kind of comes into here. On other models you might be able to get away with it, but on this one there's a little lip that comes underneath this one. So I had to take that top part off to get this one off. On others you may be able to get away with it. So for this one you have a screw there, which is the top part, and a screw, I'm not sure you can see it there, very small kind of screws. And once you release those, it will take this off. Now this is pressed onto a little bit of foam, and over the years or months, whatever else, it kind of does press onto it, and it kind of forms and gels onto it. So you may need to pry it off very gently to make sure you don't damage the foam, and that lifts out. Once you've lifted that out, there'll be these things inside. Okay, the reflective strips that sit inside there. All right, one on that side and one on that side. All right, take those out, they become redundant. I'm not planning on doing anything with those, they become redundant. Okay, then you get the LED strip, measure up where you need it. Now this particular one has got marks where I can actually cut it. So after, I think it's after every 3 LEDs, I've got one there, you know, I've got another one there. So you measure out how far you want it, where it's going to go, bearing in mind that you've got a little screw hole holster here, and you've also got a holster, where's it gone, there, okay. So you're not going to be able to, you can see mine's a little bit short there, because if I brought it all the way down to here, right, it would have interfered with the screw going in to that holster, into that mount, and that's problematic, because this then is compromised, and all the dirt, the water, the dirt, the grit, that will ingress into there and cause damage. So I thought to myself, it's better having the light a little bit short and making sure that that's secure, rather than having the light all the way down. And I wasn't sure how these actually worked, so it goes, you can cut it after every 3 bulbs, but I thought if I pierce it from about here, you know, if I put the screw through there, will it still work? And the short answer is no. This is one continuous circuit from one set of scissors to the other. So if you do pierce it, then this whole strip, that element part, won't work. All right, so you'll have to cut it out, which is why I cut it short there. But it still looks all right, you know, and you can still be seen. So once you've done that, once you've taken that out and you've measured it up, then you can see here, okay, a little bit of red. I had to drill through, and I used an 8mm. I obviously drilled a pilot hole first, and then I used an 8mm drill bit. Let me focus. And then I used an 8mm drill bit to drill through the actual box. Okay, so I could feed these wires through, and you'll see on the other end there, that's how that looks. Okay, so nice and tidy, nice and clean. And fed the wires through. Okay, so each LED has obviously a positive and a negative. So that was for the left, this one's for the right. I joined them up here, added a join here, and let the wires run all the way down to here. Okay, so what I've done, positive and negative for the left side, positive and negative for the right side, brought them down to here. So I've joined the 2 positives up, the 2 negatives up, okay, and then I've just run a single cable all the way down into this part here. All right, now what I'm going to do is probably go to home base and get some gaffer tape and just pin this down, run it up that way so it can kind of come that way down, and just, you know, keep it nice and tidy. Leave a little bit of a gap here, you know, so it kind of acts as a hinge, so the wires can you know, move with the mechanism, with the hinge mechanism. Okay, and then pin the rest of it down to here, put a little bit of gaffer tape along here, and then wire it up into these 2 things. Right, I'll explain what those are in a second. Once that's done, once that's wired up, then I will get like probably a little piece of off-cut carpet, get it cut around here, put that on top, so that will protect the wires, and it will protect the you know, the connectors, save them getting damaged. And as you've seen, it works. Now, what is this? What I wanted with my top box. Now, often I don't take it off. It's always pretty much on the bike. But there are occasions where I do want to take it off. So I'm traveling in a few weeks, and I want to be able to take off the top box when I get off my bike, because I've got my stuff in there. But what I don't want to do is have to fiddle about, you know, connecting and disconnecting, connecting and disconnecting, which is what the other model was. You know, that you get the kit, and I think that there's a little hole here that you can drill through, which tells me perhaps that there is a mechanism that they have that you can wire it into there, and you know, once you push this little silver button here to release the box off the stand, off the rack, you can just take the whole thing out. But you know, I didn't want to pay 50-60 pounds to get that done. So what I did on my Givi rack at the moment, there's a couple of screws that I've mounted on, or nuts that I've mounted on to secure the rack to the plate. So I've got a plate, and on top of the plate I've got my the Givi rack that this fits into, and my Givi rack has got a series of slits. I think 3 altogether, or 2, can't remember, and through those slits I've fed some bolts to connect the Givi rack to the base plate that's on my motorbike, and I'll show you that in the next video. So what I've done with on those bolts, I've located where those bolts are, okay, on my Givi rack, and I've drilled 2 holes, which is where these nuts are, okay, and underneath these nuts, there you go, I've got a couple of bolts. So what I do then is connect the positive and the negative, one to here and one to here, and then what that will do is allow these to act as connectors, okay, and conductors. So on the other end, underneath my rack, I will connect one side positive, okay, running from the circuit on the bike, and one side negative, again feeding into the circuit on the bike, and that will allow for these two to act as conductors to pass the current through those nuts, through the circuit, and onto my light, into my lights. So essentially that will operate those, and it gives me that opportunity, rather than having to, you know, connect and disconnect, just to take the whole rack off and the bike remains the connection remains tidy. There's no loose wires. So the next video that I'll show you, hopefully, God willing, once it's done, will be how I've connected the circuit into my bike, fed it through the backlight, and also into the Givi rack. So the Givi rack acts as a positive and negative port for my top box. Also, what's worth using are some of these. These are resistors. So, you know, I mentioned that these aren't dual element bulbs, or any single element. So what this does is that this reduces the current that goes to that. So I'm going to take one of these and put it into the live feed, okay, which means that I'll have a lower current when the light comes on, okay. But then I'm also going to take a feed from my brake lights, and I'm not going to put a resistor in. So when I have the lights on normally, yeah, the current will be a little bit reduced because of the resistor. When I apply the brake, the current will get bypassed, the resistor will get bypassed by the current that comes from, or the voltage that comes from my rear brake light, and it will cause these to shine brighter. So it's like you get that effect always with the resistor, and then the resistor gets bypassed by the main circuit from the brake lights. So if that's a little bit confusing, I haven't, you know, but there's some videos, great videos on YouTube that actually tell you how to do it. Follow those, and I'll try and kind of cover that in my other video as well once I've done it. So part 1 done, part 2 on its way.